For thousands of years, people didn't go to a pharmacy when they were in pain. They turned to something far simpler, a plant named wild lettuce. You can walk past it without noticing. It grows in ditches, along highways, in empty lots where nothing else seems to survive. Tall, narrow stem, jagged leaves, small yellow flowers that don't stand out unless you're looking for them. To most people, it's just another wild plant, something to step over or cut down or ignore. But if you break the stem, something unusual happens. A white milky sap begins to bleed out, thick, sticky, almost like latex. That sap is where everything begins. For centuries, that milky fluid was collected, dried, and used as a natural sedative and pain reliever. It even had a name, lactucarium. Apothecaries stored it, physicians prescribed it. It was measured, prepared, and given to patients the same way any other medicine was handled at the time. Not as folklore, not as guesswork, as treatment. And yet today, almost no one recognizes it. You won't find it on pharmacy shelves. It isn't something doctors mention. It's not part of standard medical training. The knowledge didn't disappear completely, it just moved out of the system. You'll find it now in scattered places, herbal manuals, foraging communities, small suppliers who still process it the old way. But it no longer exists where most people expect medicine to be. That's the strange part. The plant never went away. It still grows across North America and Europe, in the same places it always has. Nothing about it changed. No new law banned it. No official recall removed it from the world. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Because a painkiller that once sat in medical practice for generations is now something most people have never even heard of. To understand how that happened, you have to go back to when it was still part of medicine. You see, long before it was forgotten, it had a place in how people understood medicine. In ancient Egypt, medical texts like the Ebers Papyrus described plants that could ease pain and bring sleep. Among them was this form of wild lettuce, valued for the milky sap. It was not treated as something unusual. It was simply one of many natural remedies physicians relied on, recorded alongside other treatments meant to calm the body and reduce suffering. Centuries later, Greek and Roman physicians continued that same line of use. The Greek doctor Dioscorides documented it in the 1st century, noting its ability to relieve pain and quiet the nerves. The Romans used it in similar ways, prescribing it for insomnia and discomfort. By this point, the plant had already moved beyond observation. It was being described, categorized, and passed down as part of established medical knowledge. What mattered wasn't ownership or branding, it was consistency of effect. If a plant worked, it stayed in use. If it didn't, it disappeared. Wild lettuce remained. As medicine developed through the early modern period, that knowledge didn't fade. It became more structured. Apothecaries began preparing plant extracts in measured forms, tinctures, resins, and syrups. The milky sap of wild lettuce was collected and dried into lactucarium, which could be stored and administered in controlled amounts. By the 18th and 19th centuries, it had moved fully into formal practice. It appeared in pharmacopoeias, the official lists of recognized medicines. Doctors prescribed it, pharmacists stocked it. Patients took it with the same expectation as any other treatment available at the time. There was no sense that it was alternative, no sense that it was temporary. It was simply medicine, used because it worked well enough to remain part of the system. But the way medicine treated pain was about to change. By the middle of the 19th century, pain relief had changed. Opium had become the dominant solution. It was stronger, faster, and more reliable than most plant-based remedies. With the introduction of the hypodermic needle in the 1850s, doctors could deliver it directly into the bloodstream. The effects were immediate. For the first time, severe pain could be reduced quickly and with precision. Then, the American Civil War began. The Union had access to large supplies of opium and morphine. The Confederacy did not. Blockades limited imports, and by 1862, many Southern field hospitals were running out of standard anesthetics. Surgeons were left with fewer options, and the conditions were severe. Amputations and emergency procedures could not wait for supplies to arrive. In those moments, doctors turned to what was available around them. Wild lettuce grew across much of the region. Its sap could be collected, dried, and prepared into lactucarium. It was not as strong as morphine, but it could reduce pain enough to make treatment possible. Medical reports from the period note its use when other resources were unavailable. It became a substitute, not by preference, but by necessity. When the war ended, another problem became visible. Large numbers of soldiers returned with dependence on opiates. The same drugs that had managed pain during the war had also created long-term addiction. By the late 19th century, this was no longer isolated. It had become a broader medical concern. Physicians began looking again at alternatives that produced fewer side effects. Wild lettuce was one of the options studied. European doctors, including researchers in Poland, compared it with opium in clinical use. They found that while its effects were milder, it did not carry the same risk of dependence or respiratory suppression. It was not a replacement for every case, but it offered something different, a way to manage pain without creating a second problem in the process. By the early 20th century, medicine was beginning to move in a different direction. Laboratories were now replacing fields as the primary source of new treatments. Instead of extracting compounds from plants, chemists were learning how to isolate, modify, and eventually build molecules from scratch. This shift changed not just what medicines were made of, but how they were evaluated and used. A drug like aspirin, introduced at the end of the 19th century, could be produced with consistent purity and dosage. Every tablet contained the same amount of active ingredient. Its effects were predictable from one patient to the next. That level of control made it easier to study, regulate, and distribute on a large scale. Wild lettuce did not offer that kind of consistency. The concentration of its active compounds, lactucin and lactucopicrin, varies depending on growing conditions, harvest timing, and how the sap is processed. Even when prepared carefully, those compounds are chemically unstable. Over time, especially in stored or commercial forms, they begin to break down. A preparation made weeks or months earlier may not have the same effect as one made fresh. For physicians working in an increasingly standardized system, this became a problem. Treatments were expected to behave the same way each time they were used. Dosages needed to be reliable. Shelf life needed to be predictable. Patients in different locations needed access to identical formulations. Wild lettuce could still work, but it required handling that did not fit easily into this new structure. Its effectiveness depended on freshness, preparation, and variation that could not always be controlled. As medicine became more precise and uniform, the space for remedies like this began to narrow. Not because they had stopped working, but because they no longer aligned with how medicine itself was evolving. By the 1940s, medicine was no longer guided only by tradition or experience. It was being reshaped by regulation. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration began expanding its authority over how drugs were produced and approved. New laws required medicines to meet stricter standards for safety, purity, and consistency before they could be marketed. The Insulin Amendment of 1941 introduced batch testing for biological drugs. A few years later, similar expectations were applied to antibiotics like penicillin. The direction was clear. Medicines now had to prove not only that they worked, but that they could be produced the same way every time. This created a new kind of barrier. To remain in official medical use, a substance needed controlled studies, standardized preparation, and reliable composition across batches. That process required organized research, laboratory analysis, and funding. Increasingly, it also required the involvement of companies capable of carrying that work through regulatory approval. Wild lettuce did not fit easily into that framework. Its active compounds could not be isolated and stabilized in a simple, repeatable way at the time. Preparations varied depending on how and when the plant was harvested. More importantly, there was no clear financial incentive to invest in solving those problems. A plant that grew freely could not be patented in its natural form. Without exclusivity, there was little reason for any company to fund the kind of trials that new regulations now demanded. The requirements themselves were not unusual. They were part of a broader effort to make medicine safer and more reliable. But for certain remedies, they introduced a practical limitation. Wild lettuce was no longer competing on whether it could relieve pain. It was being measured against whether it could meet the structure of a system that had changed around it. So then came the big shift. In 1944, a shift that had been building for decades became official. A researcher named Fulton published an evaluation of lactucarium, the dried sap derived from wild lettuce. The conclusion was direct. Its therapeutic effects were described as doubtful or negligible. In a medical environment that was already moving towards standardized, laboratory-tested drugs, that kind of assessment carried weight. It did not exist in isolation. By that point, physicians were already favoring treatments that delivered consistent and measurable results. A substance that produced variable outcomes was harder to justify, especially when newer alternatives were available. The study did not begin the decline, but it helped define it. What mattered was how the material had been evaluated. Lactucarium sold commercially at the time was often stored for extended periods before use. The active compounds within it, lactucin and lactucopicrin, are not stable over long durations. As they degrade, the potency of the preparation decreases. A sample tested months after processing would not reflect the effect of freshly prepared material. Later chemical analyses clarified this behavior. Fresh extracts retain higher activity, while aged preparations can lose much of their effect. But by the time that understanding developed, the decision had already been made within medical practice. Once a treatment is considered ineffective, it is gradually removed from use. It disappears from textbooks, from training, and from routine prescribing. New generations of physicians are taught what replaces it, not what came before. And as it disappeared from practice, something else was already taking its place. As wild lettuce faded from medical use, it was not leaving an empty space. Other drugs had already begun to take its place. Aspirin had been introduced at the end of the 19th century and was widely adopted for pain and inflammation. By the mid-20th century, additional options followed. Acetaminophen became available in the 1950s. Ibuprofen was developed later and entered medical use in the 1960s. These drugs were easier to standardize, easier to manufacture, and easier to prescribe in precise doses. For physicians, this solved several practical problems at once. A patient could be given a specific amount with predictable results. The medication would remain stable on a shelf for long periods. The same formulation could be distributed across hospitals, pharmacies, and countries without variation. Stronger painkillers were also refined. Opioid medications, derived from compounds originally found in the opium poppy, continued to be used for severe pain. They were effective in ways milder substances could not match. In surgical settings and advanced illness, they became essential. But these advantages came with trade-offs. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, including ibuprofen, are associated with gastrointestinal irritation and, in some cases, ulcers or bleeding when used over time. Acetaminophen, while widely used, can cause liver damage at high doses. Opioids, although effective, carry a well-documented risk of dependence and overdose. None of these outcomes were unknown. They were studied, documented, and managed as part of modern medical practice. The system that replaced earlier remedies did not eliminate risk. It reorganized it, placing emphasis on consistency and control while accepting certain side effects as part of treatment. Wild lettuce had offered a different balance, less potent, less predictable, and with fewer severe adverse effects reported in historical use. But it was removed, even though not by a single decision. There was no formal ban, no moment where it was declared unsafe and taken off the market entirely. It remained legal, it continued to grow. Small groups of practitioners and foragers never stopped using it. In that sense, it did not disappear in the physical world. What changed was the structure around it. And that's it. Now to you, if you were in pain and had the choice, something powerful but risky, or something milder but safer, which one would you trust? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.